You know, pretty much every business out there is sitting on an absolute goldmine of data. We're talking customer reviews, support tickets, survey responses, but how do you turn all that raw data into actual insights without a massive budget?
Well, for most companies, this is what it actually looks like. They're basically drowning in a sea of valuable but completely unstructured and chaotic text. It's this huge potential asset, right? But it's just so incredibly hard to actually tap into.
So the big question we're tackling in this explainer is, how do you cut through all that noise and turn it into something you can actually use? Well, the most common answer is, AI. But that path, it has this huge hidden toll.
Yeah, the traditional approach comes with a really steep hidden cost that the source material calls the labeling tax. This is basically the insane amount of time and money it takes to have actual humans sit down, read, sort, and label every single piece of data before a traditional AI model can even start to do its job. So, just how expensive is this tax really? Let's break it down, let's look at the actual numbers, and you'll see pretty quickly why these old-school methods just don't scale for most businesses. Okay, so it starts small. We're talking about 15 cents, on average, for an expert to label just one piece of text. That doesn't sound too bad, right? I mean, what's 15 cents? But this is where it gets really painful. Let's say you have a pretty standard data set, maybe 50,000 reviews, and you follow best practices, right? You have 3 different people label each one to make sure it's accurate. Well, suddenly that 15 cents explodes to over $22,000. And that's just for one data set. And this chart, wow, it really lays out the whole picture. The costs are literally designed to stack on top of each other. You've got your base cost, then that 3-person consensus multiplier, and hey, if your data is specialized, like, say, legal or medical documents, you need real experts. And that can easily push a project north of 40 grand. Insane. But okay, this tax isn't just about money. It's also paid in time. A lot of time. Research shows it takes an average person about a full minute, one whole minute, to read, understand, and accurately label a single 200-word review. So let's do the math again. For our 50,000 reviews, that 1 minute per review adds up to 833 total hours of human work. To put that in perspective, that's one person working full-time with no breaks for almost 21 weeks. And this right here creates what the research calls the latency trap. I mean, think about it. Even if you throw a team of 5 people at this, it would still take a whole month just to get the data ready. By the time your analysis is finally done, guess what? The market has moved on. Customer opinions have changed. The opportunity is gone. Your brilliant insights are totally obsolete before you even get them.
So if paying this crazy labeling tax is way too slow and way too expensive, what's the alternative? Well, this brings us to the hero of our story, finding patterns without any labels at all, using this really powerful approach called unsupervised learning. Now I know, unsupervised learning might sound super technical and complicated, but really, the whole process breaks down into a pretty simple 3-step journey. First, we turn all that text into numbers. That's called vectorisation. Second, we simplify those numbers. We reduce the dimensions. And third, we group all the similar stuff together. That's clustering.
All right, let's look at step 1. We're using a technique here called TF-IDF. The easiest way to think about this is as a relevance amplifier. It scans all the text and mathematically cranks up the importance of really powerful emotional words, words like atrocious or masterpiece, while at the same time, it dials down the volume on common boring words like the or and or movie. Okay, next up, step 2. We reduce dimensions with something called SVD. You can think of this one as a semantic compressor. It takes all that number-ified data and cleverly starts grouping similar ideas together. So even if one review uses the word scary and another one uses terrifying, this compressor is smart enough to know, hey, these both belong to the same general concept of fear. And finally, the last step is clustering with an algorithm called k-means. Honestly, this is where the real magic happens. It's like you're letting your data find its own tribe. The algorithm just looks at all these data points we've created and starts grouping the most similar ones together into these natural, organic categories. And the amazing part? It does all of this without a single human label to guide it. Okay, so this all sounds great in theory, right? But does it actually work in the real world? Well, let's look at the proof. They ran a test on this massive data set of 50,000 movie reviews from IMDb. And the big question was simple. Can a machine figure out positive and negative sentiment all by itself? Now, this is what I find so cool about how they did this. To make sure the algorithm was only paying attention to sentiment, the researchers stripped out all the names, actors, directors, you name it. It was a really brilliant move because it forced the algorithm to completely ignore topics like, is this a Tom Cruise movie? And instead, focus purely on the descriptive, emotional language people were using.
And here it is, the aha moment. On the left, you're seeing the reviews colored by the original labels that humans gave them, positive and negative. And on the right, those are the two distinct clusters the algorithm found completely on its own. I mean, look at that. The structure is almost identical. The machine successfully rediscovered the hidden sentiment in the data with no help. The alignment is pretty incredible, but you can see it's not perfect, right? And that brings us to a really important business question. Is this level of accuracy good enough? Let's dive into that strategic trade-off between cost and accuracy. This table just lays it all out so clearly. On one hand, you have the unsupervised method. Labeling cost, 0. Setup time, a few days, and it gets you about 70% accuracy. Now compare that to the fancy supervised models. They cost thousands of dollars, take weeks to set up, but yeah, they can get you up to 95% accuracy. So the million-dollar question is, which one do you actually need for your business?
And it really just comes down to your goal. Look, 95% accuracy? That's what you need for high-stakes automated decisions. Like say, automatically issuing a refund if a review is negative. You can't afford to get that wrong. But 70% accuracy? That is often more than enough for high-level strategic insights. We're talking about understanding broad trends or figuring out your customer's biggest pain points. It's about getting direction, not automating a decision.
So, what does this all mean for you and your business? Well, let's wrap this up by looking at your fastest route to real insight, going completely label-free.
It really comes down to 3 huge advantages. First, massive scalability. You can analyze millions of reviews just as easily as you can analyze thousands. Second, it's domain agnostic. That's a fancy way of saying a model you build for movie reviews could be instantly pointed at, say, restaurant reviews without any expensive retraining. And third, and this might be the most powerful one, it helps you discover the unknown unknowns. These are the new issues, the emerging trends that you weren't even looking for. Ultimately, this label-free approach totally changes the game. It transforms customer feedback from this expensive, time-consuming chore into a scalable, strategic asset. So the real question isn't just about finding the trends you already expect to find. It's about discovering those priceless insights you never even knew to look for. So I'll leave you with this. What unknown unknowns are just waiting to be discovered in your data?